when I was asked, would you like to talk for Bright Sky? I was like, yeah, go on then. And then Joe said to me, what would you like to talk about? And I was like, there literally is only one thing at the moment that anyone is talking about. So I better talk about the coronavirus because that's literally the only subject anywhere. Have you watched the news where they'll be talking all about the coronavirus, there's deaths, that, terrible, this, drama, that. And then they go, let's take a break from the coronavirus and we'll go to sport. And then off we go to sport. And what does sport say? Football is cancelled. Tennis is cancelled. Golf is cancelled. Back to the coronavirus. And we're like, but we never left it. It's literally the only subject that I've heard anybody talking about. And it makes me wonder, what's happened to all the criminals? What's happened to all the other things that are normally going on in the world that are like, that normally permeate our consciousness? It seems like there's literally nothing else at the moment. Now, I've just been to India, and that was kind of like a huge big thing for me because I'm half Indian and I haven't been to India since I was a little child because I absolutely hated it there. And so going to India was just this major, major event in my life. And I really didn't anticipate that when I got back from India, everything would have changed. It's like I knew I would change from connecting with my Indian roots, but I really didn't expect the mirror that I'm looking in to be so different than it was when I left. And the field, as the field around us changes, so we change. And I think there's really almost impossible to avoid that. Like I noticed for myself, like when I was in India, I started to feel a kind of poverty consciousness. It's like in India, as a Western person, I should feel damn rich because everything is so much cheaper than it is here. But I didn't. I got caught up in their consciousness and was like, oh, how many rupees? Oh, 10p? Oh, that's a bit much. And it literally kind of went like that. And so if I was experiencing that there, in this climate that we're in here, the soup around us has literally changed. And there's an exercise that I would like to bring us to help with that specific thing, because when we're in a field, we get caught up in that field. We can't help it. It's just natural. It literally is like being a carrot in a soup. And if there's tomato in that soup, you're going to get coated in it. That's just the way. It's just the way it is. We can't stay that separate. Like I know Louise was saying she's got Caroline on her phone, and Caroline is in Finland. And I do believe that Caroline might not be hearing about the coronavirus all the time, not all the time, simply because she's like really in a distant place, like several miles away from civilization in a sense. But most of us are in our normal lives. So this exercise that I've got for us, that I'd like to begin with, I created this exercise last year when nothing to do with the coronavirus at all. It's because I was having oxygen therapy. And when you have oxygen therapy, you're put in a tank, and that tank gets a lot of pressure. They put pressure into it. It's as if you're kind of in a submarine or something, and it kind of puts you to several meters below the sea level. And it's quite demanding on your system, and your ears can go a bit weird, that sort of thing. And then, so I was having that, and then some weeks later or days later, there was really heavy weather, like just that kind of weather before a storm. And this reminds me of being in the pressure of the oxygen tank. I thought, God, we're always under so much pressure, like just physical pressure. Our bodies are under pressure. And that's before we start worrying about our health, our money, and our relationships, all the things that create stress in us. We just literally are under pressure. So this particular exercise is literally to alleviate pressure and to keep us in our own zone. And it works really quite amazingly. So if you're ready, this isn't all we're going to do. We're going to have a little chat, but let's do this exercise so that you can really get the feel of it. So if you can sit or lie, actually no, sitting actually is better. It's going to be better. You could sit or stand actually with your spine straight. So if you can just get yourself into a position where your spine is straight. And if you can let yourself begin to become aware of the lower part of your body, from the waist down. And if you know where it is, if you can give particular emphasis to your base chakra, because that's the thing that is kicking off for most of us at the moment. You're basically sitting on it, the base chakra. And now I'd like you to feel like you are pressing down with the lower part of your body, with particular emphasis on the base. Let yourself feel like you're pushing down into the ground. So feel your bum pushing into whatever you're sitting on. Feel your feet literally as if they really want to touch the earth, as if they really want to connect. And none of us at the moment are seated on grass, for example, on the actual earth. So let yourself feel as if you are pushing through, as if your feet are seeking out the earth and the earth is welcoming you, magnetizing you. And feel your feet on the ground. And let yourself notice, can you actually feel your feet? Like where, sometimes we struggle to feel the lower part of our body. So let yourself notice how far down you can go and use your hands to move down your legs, if that helps. And literally feel like you are pressing yourself into the earth. That's it. Feel that press and enjoy that press. And now, as you are pressing down, continue to press down, but become aware of your body from the waist up. And now, whilst pushing down, excuse me, whilst pressing down with the bottom half of your body, press upwards with the top half of your body. So as if your spine is trying to reach the sky, your head really wants to touch the clouds. And this will create a stretch. Just let yourself feel that stretch and feel it like it's normal. Like you're not having to hold your breath to do it. It's not taking you out of your comfort zone. It's just a stretch, an upward and a downward stretch happening at the same time. And when you can feel that, we're going to do the same movement. We're going to keep the up and down going, and we're going to press outwards. So from the middle of you, whether you think of that as your solar plexus, your belly, your heart, whatever feels like it's your middle, let yourself feel as if you are pressing outwards there. You can use your hands if it helps you. If you literally want to feel as if you are pressing outwards in front of you, as if you're pressing quite like you mean it. And now, whilst you've got that movement going on, also do it the other way. So if you've been moving out sideways, also move out in front and behind you. And that might be harder to use your hands for. So do it energetically. That's it. So you're stretching up and you're stretching out. And instead of that feeling like lots of different movements, let it feel like it's one movement. As if you're in a ball or a sphere. And any direction that you push causes you to move everything. So as if you bring the whole ball in or you bring the whole ball out with one movement. And now with it out, let that start to feel normal. Notice how it feels. It's very strengthening for your system. It brings you into your own field. And just take some breath in there. And let it relax as if you're letting the ball become smaller. And then let it go out again. And let that movement out feel strong but easy. Like you're not having to exert a lot of effort to make it happen. Now this exercise, just as you are now, you can do it with this degree of focus. And you can also have it running in the background. Both are useful in different ways. To use this degree of focus brings you into yourself. It solidifies you, it grounds you, it strengthens you. And to have it running in the background feels as if you're not exactly in your own bubble, but you're in your own self. You have more access to self because it's not being kind of, the word that comes is contaminated, and that's not quite the word I want, but interrupted. It's not got so much of everything else going on in it. It will keep your system calm and strong. So that's the exercise. It's not like a precious thing. It's not like you need to be like, oh, I need silence around me to do it. You can do it while you're doing the dishes. You can do it while you're doing something else. But do use it. It's incredibly strengthening for the energy system. You know, it's not surprising if you're feeling the pinch. Everyone's feeling pinched is literally the feeling that we're feeling at the moment. And whether that's socially, whether it's financially, whether it's fears for our health and the health of our loved ones, it's an absolutely normal response. Now, the spiritual journey is basically about getting more and more comfortable with the unknown. And bingo, here we have just the most perfect opportunity to get comfortable with quite an extreme unknown. And there's quite a vast spectrum that I notice about how people are handling this. There's those who've got a million rolls of toilet paper in their cupboards, and who are literally in Tesco's. They were telling me that the police got called because people were fighting over toilet paper, punching each other in the mouth over toilet paper. Amazing. It's because I think it's because the thing that is so affected in us is our base chakra. It's the base chakra that's going wild. And so toilet paper is just what the base chakra is asking for, basically. But there's an extremity. Well, there's a spectrum. I don't want to call it an extremity. There's a spectrum. There's those of us who are absolutely terrified. What's going to happen? Oh my God, my livelihood, my family, it's doom and gloom. And then there's the others right at the other end of the spectrum going, yes, this is what I came for. This is what I arrived for. This is what we were born for. We've got front row seats. And capitalism is going to destruct. This is amazing. And there's everything in between. And each individual isn't necessarily polarized into one of those positions. They go through the whole spectrum regularly on a daily basis. We can be feeling absolute terror and fear one minute and delight and joy the next. Absolutely normal for this to be what's going on for us. There's those who are going like completely locked down, and those who think it's not that serious, like I was saying about people can like be out partying and dancing and enjoying themselves, and like especially our young people, they're like, no, I'm not going to get ill. It's like there comes a point when we become aware of our own mortality. And until that point, I think we just think nothing's going to affect us. And those people, I'm really curious to see how they play out, because I'm wondering if that's where the creativity is going to come from, because they're not afraid. And I think the biggest problem that we all have, the thing that if we could curb this, if we can tend to this, we're going to be all right, is our fear. So how do we cope with fear? Do we have our ways of coping with fear? Do you know when you feel fear? What makes you know that you're feeling fear? You know, the things to look for, first things to look for, I would say, are on a physical level. If you can notice your breathing, this is like a prime opportunity to notice ourselves. This is where we can grow, because what are we going to pay attention to? We're going to need to pay attention to ourselves. And if we can notice, am I feeling fear? Am I shaking? What's my breath like? Is it long? Is it short? And it's almost like grounding into the body is what we're going to need to do. So there's grounding, like grounding into the earth, but there's also grounding into the body. Embodiment, coming into the body. This is what's going to make us well. Like the more we are in our body, the less anything else can be there. It's like with our home. If you're at home, you're much less likely to get burglars than if you leave your house empty for 3 months, for example. Do you think there is anything else going on in the world? I really do wonder. It's like, it's quite amazing how everything seemed so busy before, like we kind of felt like we couldn't stop, we couldn't necessarily take a break. And here we're having to. Everything just feels like it's stopped. It feels like the world has stopped and our patterns are being interrupted. It feels like all the patterns are being interrupted. Things like, you know, things that we would rely on, bus timetables, or when's your train coming, or going to work and coming home, all disrupted. You know how we would normally get when we're in the normal world and the train is late, let's say, and we just freak out and get annoyed and upset and get home late, and it just feels so annoying. And now that's kind of our lives. We don't even know if there's going to be a train. That's the unpredictability of life, I think, is only going to increase. And how are we going to handle that? How are we going to navigate it? You know, I feel like how well we handle it is basically depends on our capacity for flexibility, for adaptability, and a willingness to have our patterns interrupted. And I feel very blessed that I've just been to India, because all my patterns got interrupted anyway, being there. And in addition to that, I saw, I don't want to call it poverty. I mean, obviously there was also poverty in India, but that's not what I'm pointing to. But an economic simplicity. I mean, they don't have problems with toilet paper because they just don't use any. I mean, trying to get toilet paper in some of the places we were in was an impossibility. And they just need 1 cup, and they just can eat rice and dal. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's such a simplicity to life there. It's much more day by day. You know, when we have wealth, it tends to help us plan into the future. It's that we can plan next year's holiday, that kind of thing. When we've got nothing, it brings us into the present. Now, I'm not wishing nothing on anybody, but we are going to need to be more, it's going to bring us into presence. We're going to be aware of how we're feeling in this moment. And we're going to notice simple things, simple pleasures, like a gathering like this, for example. When we're 3 weeks in and we haven't seen a soul, meeting people online is going to feel like meeting people in the flesh. Then it's probably going to feel weird when we meet people in the flesh. I mean, can you imagine now, like when we hug someone, at the moment, we know we're hugging them, right? We're having a hug. We're doing that hug thing we're not supposed to do, but we're doing it. It can feel a bit like that. So what's it going to feel like when things go back to normal? Will they go back to normal? I think that normal has gone. I think that I don't see us going back to the same norms. I mean, they've closed the schools now. That's like, people are taking this seriously, proper seriously. Another thing to be aware of in all this is what's going on in your body. Like, I've been noticing I'm so tired. Like, the other day I didn't set an alarm and I didn't wake up till nearly 11 o'clock. I was like a teenager the last time that happened. And it's our bodies are going through all sorts of weird things. They're tired, they're wired, they feel weird, they're confused. And it's not surprising, because at the moment we're in many worlds, especially the more sensitive amongst us. We're in many worlds and there's many different things going on. And we can't just assume that what we're seeing in front of us is all that's happening. There's so much going on. It's bound to have an effect on our systems. So I feel like self-care is probably one of the most important things that we can do in this current situation. And self-care means different things to different people. And it's also different things for different aspects of us. So on a physical, practical level, there's a lot of talk about that. So I'm not going to dwell there, but, you know, washing your hands, eating well, getting enough sleep. We're obviously going to react to things according to our levels of consciousness, of fear, and of love. Those 3 elements. And I feel like there's a lot of fear in our bodies, nothing to do with the coronavirus, but just through our lives. And those fears, this is an ample opportunity for them to come up. And so I feel like soothing our fears is something that we need to do physically. We can talk to parts of ourselves as if they're not ourselves. Like, our bodies actually can sometimes use instruction, like, you're hungry now. Don't worry, you're just hungry, or you're tired, or yes, you're feeling fear. And one of the things I love to do with that is to exaggerate, to almost pantomime whatever emotion I've got going on. So I was once at a party and I'd just gone by myself, and I was like, didn't know many people, and I was ever so awkward. I was just the awkwardest of awkwards. And so rather than trying to pretend I wasn't awkward, I amped up my awkwardness. And I sort of stood there, I'm just feeling really awkward now. And I got to know awkward really well. Awkward became quite a companion for about a quarter of an hour at that party. It felt like a lifetime, but it probably wasn't that long. So amping up how we're speaking to ourselves and noticing what we're feeling and not minding that we're feeling it. It's like, I feel like those days are gone now where we've got to put on a straight face and pretend everything's fine. And it's not. We're going to be having a lot of emotions. There's our physical level that's going to feed into the emotional level. And, you know, it's not like we had nothing else going on originally. I mean, we've got the menopause happening. We've got issues with relationships happening. We've got difficult children happening. We've got all sorts of things that are already happening. And those things don't just go away because now we've got the coronavirus. And so communicating with ourselves and being aware of our emotions, being aware that we're emotionally labile, and having higher tolerances for ourselves and others, I think is going to be extremely helpful for us. On an energetic level, so in terms of our consciousness, how's that feeling? How do we grow in a situation like this? I feel like a situation like this brings up fear. And if we can simply contend with our fear, we're going to be all right. The fear is the worst thing in this situation. Even if we were going to die, and obviously I'm not wishing this on anybody, but if it was our turn to die, the most beautiful death I've ever heard of was a friend of mine whose 80-odd-year-old father was dying. And he took 3 last breaths. And with each breath, he said the word yes. So as he died, he went, yes, yes. And he was gone. And what beautiful death. There was no fear. There was nothing to worry about in that. And so whilst obviously I'm not in any way saying, you're going to die and not to worry, I really don't mean that. But I just mean if we can be at peace with what's happening, if we can be at peace and see things, it's almost like material loss is often spiritual growth. If we can see it like that and not panic over what our loss is, what the physical loss in our lives is, it's going to make things much easier. Like, for example, you might not be able to get the food in the supermarket that you prefer. You might have to eat more simply. And that's just not going to be a problem for you, right? I mean, you know, even those of us with like eating allergies and things like that, we're going to find a way. We're just going to eat simply and not be so fussy. It's interesting to me when I go in the supermarket and they haven't got everything organic that I want. And I'm like, what? Not organic cow? What? They're not. I don't know how I feel about that. And you know, by the time you leave the supermarket, like you're just damn glad to get whatever you can. And I don't know if that's the same all around the country. I'm in London, and here, there's no pasta on the shelves. There's definitely no toilet paper on the shelves. And if you want shopping, you have to go early in the morning. So we're already quite impacted by it. I think what we come to see here is what we're rooted in. Like if we're rooted in our physical form, then it's our physical form that will need to take care of us. It's then our work is far more physical. It's staying physically healthy, it's exercising, it's breathing well, it's breathing in fresh air, it's utilizing the physical. And if we're rooted in our spirit more strongly, then that's kind of what's going to keep us safe. It's like whatever is known to us, whatever is our friend, whatever is the place that we operate from, that's the place that we're going to need to engage with to make us feel comfortable, our natural place. For some of us, it's an emotional field. For some, it's mental. For some, like for somebody mental, they might want to have lists, keep lists of things and make sure they know where everything is and what shops are open and which ones are closed. And they might need order in their lives. Might need to keep your house tidy if you need order in your life. If it's emotional, if you're an emotional person, chances are you're going to find yourself experiencing other people's emotions at this time. There's a hell of a lot of emotion flying around. And so if you're an emotional person, I really want to encourage you to ground yourself, to ground the emotions, to literally feel like you are kind of wiping them off you, literally. You know, the biome around us, we think that this is me, that I end here. There's all this as well. All this is still me, all of this. It's kind of like when someone comes and stands too close to you and they're in your personal space, if you can think of that personal space as being an extension of you, and you want to keep that personal space clear. And you can do that. A good way to do that is in the shower. When you're having a physical wash, have an energetic wash as well. Literally be aware that you can pull stuff off you, flick stuff off you. Energy literally is on us. It literally is around us, in the field around us. And you know, I don't know if you know Amma. She's the hugging saint. I went to her ashram just now in India. But before I'd met Amma, I met a woman who had spent time with Amma. And the feeling of this woman, I just felt like she wore Amma. I could feel Amma in this woman's field. And it's like that with our fields. We've got a field, and keeping our field clean and fresh. Something that also helps with that on a physical, in that kind of bit between physical and non-physical, things like essential oils. Things like resins, like burning frankincense, for example, is just wonderful for the air. And essential oils, anything like eucalyptusy. There's a blend of oils that most companies do that's called 5 Thieves. Different brands call it different things. doTERRA calls it On Guard. A lot of brands call it Thieves or 4 Thieves, 5 Thieves. And the theory behind that is that in days of the plague, when there'd be dead bodies lying around and people were going to steal from the dead bodies, they'd get sick and they'd get the plague off these dead bodies. But if they used these oils, they didn't get sick. And a couple of years ago, I was using these oils. I was with a group of people and one of them had flu really, really badly. And everybody else came down with flu except for me. So essential oils can help. I mean, I've also seen memes about this. You know, there's coronavirus and there's a white woman. I've got my essential oils. I'm going to be fine. So, you know, but they can help. They can help clean the air. And any little thing that can help at this point is useful, I feel. Especially those things that kind of go through the physical and the non-physical, which essential oils can do, like they can fill the air, for example. If we believe that it's our physicality that keeps us safe, then it's our physicality that we need to be investing in. And if we believe it's our spirit that keeps us safe, that keeps us strong, then it's our spirit we need to be investing in. And how would you invest in your spirit? What would be the ways? I mean, we've probably all got ways already that we use. Maybe meditation, mantra, that kind of thing. There was one thing, you know, when they tell you to wash your hands for 20 seconds, saying a mantra during those 20 seconds is really quite nice. Saying something self-loving, like how long does it take to say, I'm wonderful, I'm clean, I'm strong, I'm happy? Things like that can be really useful. And for your system, when your body hears these words, it doesn't care who's saying it. It hears it and it goes in, even if it's your own voice saying it. And I feel like something that's important to talk about is being strong. Talk about to yourself, is that you are strong. It's like the one thing that I think that we really mustn't do is to collapse. Like, this is a bit of an overshare, so I kind of apologize in advance, but it's kind of what I'm like anyway. So I've got a gluten intolerance and I'd inadvertently eaten some gluten. This is quite a while back. And so this is the overshare bit. So I'm sat on the loo and it's coming out both ends. Obvious overshare there, sorry. And that's when I learnt how not to collapse. Because I was sitting there on the toilet looking at the floor and it's the middle of the night and I'm feeling really ill. And I know that if I go lie down on that floor, first of all, I'm going to make a big mess that I'm then going to have to clean up. And second, it's going to be really hard to get up from. And so simply not collapsing became my mantra from then on. And I just don't collapse now. The feeling of collapsing, I can't, I just literally don't have access to it anymore. I can feel shit, but not collapsed. And not collapsing. If you notice yourself collapsing, it's very destructive for your whole system because you have to get back up again. And it takes a lot of energy to fortify yourself and stay there. But if you can use the energy to do that, rather than collapsing now and having to then build yourself up afterwards, it makes a huge amount of difference. Huge. Now, obviously, the field that we're in, and, you know, we can talk all day long about do this exercise and don't get caught up in the field, but we're in a field. We're breathing the same air as everybody else. I've often thought it strange how we'll sit on the tube. Like, have you ever been on the tube in London, for example, where, you know, you're closer to someone sometimes than if you're having sex with them and they're right up there in your face, right next to you. And we kind of go, you know, we keep ourselves away whilst breathing the same air. I'm breathing in the air of the person I'm cringing away from next to me. Why was I saying that? Oh yeah, I was saying we're in the same field as everybody. And the field that we're in is very, very survival orientated at the moment. That's where we're at. We're on survival. And we get to see it. So this is not a time really for growth and expansion. This is a time to investigate survival. What is survival? What does that mean? It's like, for many of us, we're always on survival mode, regardless of viruses. It's just how we live. And now it's just everyone's caught up with us. But what does it mean to be in survival mode? This gives us a beautiful opportunity to explore what that is. What are our fears? What is it that we're actually fearing? Are we fearing death? Are we fearing economic ruin? What is it we're fearing? Becoming clear about our fears is going to be enormously helpful to us in this time. It's like at the moment we're fearing the unknown. And to fear the unknown is terrifying. So there's this virus that we've heard that under a microscope it looks like a crown. That's all we know. We're not seeing any crowns in our field, are we? So we're not thinking of crowns, really. So we've got this faceless thing, this faceless enemy that's out to get us. And if we don't stay indoors and batten down the hatches, it's going to get us. And then because we're not all scared of it getting us, what we become scared of is, well, you're going to give it to your mum or your grandma, or you're going to make, or children, somebody else is going to get ill because of you. And nobody wants to be in that role. So fear and base chakra is the loudest thing in the room at the moment. And when something is loud, it needs our attention. Have you ever tried telling a loud child to bugger off? Tends not to work. And the fear is like that. So if we can attend to our fear, if we can see what we are actually afraid of, even sometimes, like depending on your orientation, if you're a logical, rational person, then making lists of what you're afraid of, what the worst case scenario is in relation to all those things. Like you're homeless, you're going to be on the streets. Then you remember that you've got a friend who's got a big garden you could have a caravan in, for example. Things like that. If we know what the worst case scenario is, that's going to be useful for our minds. If we know what the worst case scenario is for our body, for the majority of us, we're not expecting to die. For the majority of us, we're thinking that we'll get a bit of a flu and it's not going to be very comfortable and then we'll be over it. So be aware of the base chakra, of yourself and of everybody else. It's almost like they're throbbing. And anything that you can do to still calm or use the energy of the base chakra, for example, dancing, that can work its way out of you. But acknowledging it and noticing that if you're feeling odd, you probably are. You're probably not making it up. Also be aware that feelings change really, really rapidly, depending on what's in front of you. If you've got someone in front of you going, oh my God, we're all going to die. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I've got no money. Oh my God. If you've got that going on, it's like we're more sensitive at the moment. That's going to bring us down. And so more than ever, be aware of the company that you're keeping. And when you've got people who are, that you're kind of responsible for or acting in a way that you're responsible for, people who are in more fear than you are, just giving them information about what's going on for them. Yep, you're experiencing fear. Your breathing rate is going to change, and talking them down off a ledge is going to be really useful for you and for them. Because when we're reminding someone else that they don't need to be afraid, it helps us too. But be aware that your feelings can change very rapidly depending on the field that you're in that precise moment. And do please use that exercise to push in all directions. It doesn't keep you separate from life, it just strengthens you. And the invitation to embodiment. Now, embodiment obviously means different things for different people. For me, it means bringing my spirit into my form. For other people, it means exercising. For other people, it means eating. But noticing what embodiment is for you. And when you see children are generally pretty embodied. And one of the theories is that that's why children are not getting this virus as much as older people who are almost sort of halfway out. So the more in our physical form we can be. And I would say just touching yourself. Literally becoming aware. Like we can forget. Like when you wake up in the morning, in that moment, before you've put yourself on, you can forget even that you've got a body. But recognizing, literally touching your body, giving your body touch. Your body doesn't mind if it's your own touch or somebody else's. And when you see the words embodiment, like an embodiment class or walking in the park, that kind of thing, anything that embodies you, that's going to be very useful right now. Literally, the less we're in our bodies, the more anything else can be here. And what about things like social events? Like, I don't know what we do with that. I mean, I can see that life's obviously going to become much more virtual, but I don't know what extent. I mean, is everybody taking it individually? Is everyone deciding, well, I'm going to be all right, I'm going to go and see my mum, and other people going, no, not going to go and see them at all? It's going to be different things for different people. And then there's all the things that go through our minds, like, who's in charge of this? Is this real? Is somebody like pulling the strings? Is there some conspiracy happening here? And there've been coronaviruses before. Why is it suddenly a problem? Is there somebody in charge? Is it the Illuminati who are trying to mess with us? Like, something that occurs to me is if we do exactly what we're being told to do and completely isolate ourselves, we're going to be like in a little bubble And it's going to be like, you know, when someone's in an isolation ward in hospital, they're not going to get any germs, but they're not going to get any germs. And so our systems can get weakened from that. And there is a little bit of me that thinks, well, if I've been inside for 3 months, say, and I've not been exposed to anything, and then it's time to go out again, that would be a good time to knock us off our perches. So I feel like we need to keep ourselves strong during this time. And I feel like we do need some germs. Maybe not coronavirus germs, but some sort of germs. How do we get germs? How do we get them without being afraid? So there's the bigger picture. There's who's in charge of all this, what's making it all happen. And then there's the smaller picture. And in a time of crisis or illness or anything like that, we need to come in. We just need to come in and get smaller. It's not time to be out in the world and doing public speaking and this kind of thing. It's time to be small people, to be littler, and just to take care of what's right in front of us, to cook healthy food, to watch programs that we love, and to just calm down. What's that calm down, carry on kind of thing that is on most cups and, you know, on all those cups, that kind of thing. And then there's our money. That's an area that seems to be the area of most confusion right now. You know, if you're an employer and you've got staff working for you and you haven't got any customers because nobody's going out, what do? So many people are scared about they're going to have to let people go, and that's such an uncomfortable place for them to be. And then there's the employees who, are we thinking that our boss has got it all covered? Or are we thinking that we're going to need to do something? You know, I heard years ago that the average British person has about enough money for a month to last a month with no income. And obviously that's the average. It's not every person involved, but everybody, I think the thing to know here is that everyone is in the same boat, and that measures haven't been rolled out yet. We don't even know what they're going to be. But if we can live simply, if we can simplify our lives and not be thinking that someone else is responsible for us, things like rent and mortgages and all our bills, if we can't pay them, we're not going to get chucked out. This is not the time when that's going to happen. So this is likely to cause a mess, but not a mess that can't be sorted out later. What about those of us who are self-employed? It feels like this is a nice time to give when we can. It feels like this is a time where we actively want to help those around us. It feels like we want to give care to those that we can give care to. There's like a natural human movement to care for people. And this is a beautiful opportunity to do so, to look around us, to see who needs care. I feel like the most important thing that we can do in this situation is to stay sane and to not go into our dramas. And one way that you can notice you're in a drama is your voice often changes. It tends to go high, tends to go up here. We tend to go a lot like that. So if you can notice yourself, if you can talk yourself off the ledge and you can bring yourself back down into your physical form, that's going to be a wonderful thing. And I would also say that, as I said before, if you can make lists and things and notice what is the worst case scenario and can you handle it? And if you can handle the worst case scenario, you're going to be all right, because it's probably not going to happen anyway. And the other thing is that quite often we sort of save for a rainy day. I think this is it. I think this is probably that rainy day. So if you have got savings and you're thinking, no, I'm saving it for something important, this might be that something. It just might be. One of the things we're going to have more of is time. I mean, oh my God, having time. It's been so long since many of us have had enough time. What a blessing. Time to do what with, though? What are we going to do with our time? I think initially we're going to need to relax. We don't have a template for what to do with our time yet. I know when my children were very young and their dad would take them out, I'd be like, yes, I've got time. And all I'd really end up doing was sitting there waiting for them to come home, because I wasn't used to doing anything with that time. It wasn't that I had a plan in place. I would say let yourself be in the absence of anything. So just let yourself do nothing. Sit and look out the window, and something will arise. Things will eventually start to arise that you want to be interested in. Money will probably have less of it. And again, I come back to having just spent time in India, where nobody seems to have, I mean, there's the very rich, but the majority of people have no money and they have perfectly nice lives. So if we can economically simplify our lives, it might be times when we start doing trades with other people, for example, rather than using actual hard cash. It's going to become so much more like a village. It's like our world's going to get, I imagine it's going to get smaller, and our monkey brain will be able to handle that 150 people that we've got around us because it's not too vast. And what about loneliness? That's something that I think is going to be a big concern for many people, especially those older people on their own and they're being told to self-isolate and no one's going to visit them because nobody wants to give them a virus. I feel like phone calls and little messages and pictures, and this is where the internet really is going to come into its own. You know, when I thought of the apocalypse happening, I imagined there being no internet, no electricity. I hadn't thought of it as being that the internet's kind of all we've got left. That's something quite beautiful in that, because it's relatively new, the internet. So it's like it's all been rolled out layer by layer by layer. I think things like normal things like sleep, rest, and balance are going to be things that we need to find in our life. And finding balance is something of an art. Enough. The word enough is long been one of my favorite words. Enough sleep, enough time, enough money, enough food. If we can know that we have enough, we will have enough. And fear is the thing that's going to keep coming. It's going to transmute. It's going to come in different forms. So be vigilant to your fear, but not in a trying to get rid of it kind of way. More in a, hello, fear, you're showing up in this format now. That's interesting. So getting curious about your fear. It's like this is an opportunity to dive into what's within you. It's like there's not much happening outside. You might as well go in. Inside, the landscape is rich and vast. So I think that's me. Oh, just one last thing. One of the things that I've been noticing with people is when they've made a decision about how they're going to be, they feel stronger for making that decision, regardless of what that decision is. Whether that decision is to continue to go out to work or to completely isolate themselves. So making a decision seems to make things easier. You know, if you're just in normal life, if you go to the supermarket and you're shopping to be healthy, you've got kind of something to follow. Or if you're shopping to save money, you've got something to follow. So when we can make decisions about how we're going to be, I'm not saying rush into that decision, but let yourself notice that that's probably something that is going to make you feel better. And you can make those decisions on a daily basis. For example, I decide today I'm going to be strong. I am going to be strong. I am strong. Even decisions like that give an orientation to our systems. That's very helpful at these times. So I think that's me. I didn't think I'd have much to say. Seems like I did.